If you like this video, please give a thumbs up and subscribe. Hit the bell icon to be notified of new videos. Last updated on December 24, 2015. Date: September 1995. Location: Culpeper, Virginia. Time: Summary: the young witness was sleeping in his bedroom when he rolled over in bed onto his left side. He opened his eyes and saw an alien looking down on him. The alien had smoke black-colored skin, had shiny black reflective eyes, and it was tall and slender. The witness immediately froze upon looking at the alien, feeling no control over his body. He could not even move or speak. The alien then lifted his hand and the witness saw a bright flash of light that lasted for about a second. He then found himself inside what appeared to be a UFO. The room was very bright and he could see 3 other aliens with him. He was lying on a hard bed, which was made out of some type of smooth stone. He watched one of the aliens insert a needle that had 3 smaller needles around it, inside his right bicep. He did not feel any pain but felt the coldness of the needle. After the injection, one of the aliens came over to him, lifted his hand up, and a bright flash filled the witness' eyes. He then found himself back in his house on his bed. He went to the kitchen, turned the lights on, and saw what appeared to be red dots on his bicep where the aliens had injected him. Source: NU Fork. Date: September 1995. Location: Tanjung Sepet, Selangor, Malaysia. Time: 0730. Summary: Rosley Cotter, 36, claimed that he had encountered a small green being in his plantation. The incident occurred early in the morning when the witness was attending to his oil palm trees. While bending down to pick up the leaves of the oil palm, he suddenly caught sight of a green creature about 2.5 feet tall staring at him, just about 20 feet away. He was so shocked by the sight that he left whatever he was doing and immediately ran away. He told his friend about the presence of the green creature. When they returned to the site, the strange being was gone. Rosley described the being as greenish in color, appeared to be without clothes, and the body was covered with scales. The head of the being appeared normal as compared to its body. It was bald-headed and had a pair of large pointed ears. The eyes were described as reddish and a bit slanted at the sides. The nose and mouth were small. Source: Ahmad Jamaluddin. Date: September 1995. Location: Tanjung Sepet Laut, Selangor, Malaysia. Time: daytime. Summary: crowds gathered at the village and apparently reported seeing a UFO as large as a soccer pitch land. 2 2-foot-tall humanoids with long ears and red eyes briefly emerged from the object. No other information. Source: Marcus Day in Aliens, Encounters with Unexplained. Date: September 1995. Location: La Sierra, Ibanito, Puerto Rico. Time: noon. Summary: 7-year-old Luisito Martinez had climbed on a tree branch of a tamarind tree when suddenly something jumped up from the ground and landed sitting next to him on the branch. He described it as a hairy creature with large red eyes that stared at him. It had a sharp crest on its back and a thin long sharp tube protruded from its mouth. It had 2 thin 3-fingered hands, each with a long claw at the end. The creature gently grabbed Luisito's right wrist. Scared, he slapped the creature's hand, which let go immediately. Luisito then lost his balance and fell to the ground, remaining there staring at the fantastic creature, which suddenly jumped down to the ground, landing next to the witness among the brush. At this point, Luisito noticed that behind the creature on a clearing near the tree was a rotating multi-colored spherical object. According to Luisito, it was spherical, composed of 4 stripes: purple, red, yellow, and a blue one that appeared to open up. In the center of the opening, the witness could see numerous other similar creatures that appeared to be engaged in hurried activity. While the creature, close to Luisito, appeared to beckon to him with its clawed hand. Luisito was convinced that the creatures wanted him to go with them. The multi-colored sphere emitted a very loud engine sound, resembling that of a lawn mower. The creature again approached the witness and grabbed his wrist, again in a very gentle manner, and again Luisito slapped the creature's hand back. At this point, the creature ran and entered the multi-colored luminous sphere, which jumped up over the tree and then took off in an angle towards the north. His mother found Luisito standing by the tamarind tree looking up into the sky as if in a trance. Source: Jorge Martin, La Conspiración Chupacabras, translated by Albert S. Rosales. Date, location, time, summary, source, location. Tbilisi, Georgia, Russia. Date, September 1995. Time, evening. The main witness and some friend had gone a local botanical park and mentally called down a UFO that had apparently been hovering overhead in an invisible state. After the UFO landed, it materialized. It was about 8 to 10 meters in diameter and was egg-shaped. After landing, a door appeared. It opened up, but they could not see anybody inside, only 3 armchairs and what appeared to be computer equipment. The main witness received telepathic communication from the unseen aliens. He asked if he could go with them but was told that only in the astral plane. He was asked if he wanted to see New York City. He said yes, but his friends became scared and did not allow him to go inside the craft. They then ran away from the park. Source: Gufo A. Date, location, time, summary, source, location. San Francisco, California. Date, September 1995. Time, night. Harry Fletcher was strolling through the streets of Chinatown. As he turned into one of the small alleys, he saw, at the end of the street, a hopping fireball. Slowly he drew closer, and he could make out a human-like form, made entirely from light, which suddenly raced toward him with great speed. Fletcher dove to one side, feeling, as he did this, a sharp pain in his right arm, and then he lost consciousness. 2 days later, Fletcher awoke in the hospital, with a concussion, various broken ribs and other bones, and a deep laceration of his upper right arm. Source: UFO, Richard Brunswick photo collection. Date, location, time, summary, source, location. Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Date, September 1995. Time, late night. The witness was sleeping in the master bedroom when she was awakened to see an entity in the form of a humanoid male floating to the right side of the foot of the bed. She was then told, in a non-verbal manner, that his name was Marcus and he was there for her. She felt that she had a very close relationship with him. She described the entity as being tall, approximately human in appearance, but with a cat-like face. He appeared to be dressed in a manner that suggested to her a military officer from an earlier time period, with an apparent breastplate arranged in a chevron design. The entity held his hands out to her, palms up, and she instinctively knew to put her hands in his. She then rose up, and he pulled her in closer to him. At that point she felt that they were within a ball of light, and as if they were dancing. She could not recall any sounds, and was not sure whether or not they were still within the room, but felt that there was not enough space within the room to have danced in the manner which they presently were. The dance was more like a complete spiritual union than physical motion to music. At one point when this interaction was concluded, she knew that Marcus had to go. She then apparently found herself back on her bed. Source: Chad Lewis, Craig Lang, Minnesota MUFON. Date, location, time, summary, source, location. Campo Rico, Puerto Rico. Date, September 1995. Time, midnight. Police officer Jose Collazo was awakened by his car alarm going off. Arming himself with a pistol, he ran out and saw a strange 5-foot-tall creature that appeared to be attacking his pet Chow Chow dog. The creature appeared to be trying to bite the dog that was attempting to defend itself. The creature suddenly stood up and looked at the witness, who felt threatened and fired his gun at the creature. The creature then seemed to curl up and bounced against a wall, then ran away from the area at very high speed. No trace was found of the creature after a search. Source: Jorge Martin, Evidencia OVNI number 8. Date, location, time, summary, source, location. Ashland, New Hampshire. Date, September 6, 1995. Time, 2302. The witness fell asleep on a chair when he was suddenly lifted into a globular object, flown over a city where he saw people looking up at him. Then he flew above what appeared to be an African savanna and muddy river. The craft then apparently goes up into orbit. He was then placed into a transparent tub or tank filled with breathable fluid by 2 short gray humanoids while a third one watched. He was surprisingly calm as the humanoids apparently took notes. After a few minutes he was allowed to walk to a window or screen. A metallic cylinder of great size begins to fill the view in the left of the window. There are white and blue lights running the entire length of it. Later, before being returned, he saw 4 species of beings in one place together. No other information. Source: NU Fort. Date, location, time, summary. Source, location. Near Carabasino, Spain. Date, September 7, 1995. Time, late evening. Businessman Pedro de Medina was driving on his way to town when he noticed a huge shadowy figure standing at the edge of the road by a very steep embankment. As he approached the figure, he noticed that it appeared to be a gigantic entity wearing very dark clothing. Suddenly, and somewhat hunched over, the tall entity began crossing the road in front of the witness vehicle. In a kind of slow-motion trot, it only took the entity 2 steps to cross the road ahead of the astounded witness. As the entity crossed to the other side of the road, it seemed to vanish in plain sight of de Medina, who kept on driving and did not stop. Source: Iker Jimenez, El Paraíso Maldito, Cursed Paradise. Date, location, time, summary. Source, location. Campo Rico, Canavanas, Puerto Rico. Date, September 7, 1995. Time, night. Misael Negron observed a strange creature standing on his second-story balcony for about 10 minutes. He described the creature as about 5 feet tall, dark skin, a round head with pointy chin, with large red eyes, no ears, and what appeared to be 2 long fangs coming out of its mouth. It had a thin neck, thin arms with 3-fingered hands that had sharp claws. It had 2 large strong legs, and on the ridge of his back it had what appeared to be a sharp crest, that seemed to be phosphorescent and change colors from green to blue, to red, orange, green and violet. The creature seemed to be inspecting the neighborhood from the balcony. Upon being discovered by the witness, it looked into the window, then left. Source: Jorge Martin. Evidencia OVNI number 8. Date, location, time, summary. Source, location. Campo Rico, Canavanas, Puerto Rico. Date, September 8, 1995. Time, night. Angel David Negron encountered a strange creature crouching next to a mutilated goat in his backyard. The creature, upon being discovered, jumped up and landed in front of the witness, who it then chased up a window. It then ran quickly into the woods and disappeared. The dead goat had apparently been drained of blood and the internal organs were missing. The creature emitted a loud buzzing sound as it ran away from the area. Source: Jorge Martin. Evidencia OVNI number 8. Date, September 11, 1995. Location, Rocetta, San Antonio, Italy. Time, 1745. Summary: A 20-year-old woman was taking her sheep to a pasture in a valley, when she noticed something shiny standing nearby. She got closer to the object and it suddenly turned towards her. She could now see that it was a small smiling humanoid wearing a brown coverall within a sort of transparent spacesuit. It stood about 50 centimeters tall and appeared to have no arms or a nose. It had a silver half-sphere with an antenna on top, on its shoulders. She stared at the figure for about 5 minutes, then began walking back home. The small being apparently began following her. The witness panicked and she called out to a neighbor, who attempted to approach the small being. This one then began to trot quickly away, then it took off into the air emitting a noise like a motorcycle motor. 2 others saw the flying humanoid over a field. Source: Italian UFO Reporter. Date, September 11, 1995. Location: Knock Forest, Bathgate Hills, Scotland. Time, evening. Summary: David Coleman was driving down a country road with his wife and 3 children when he saw what appeared to be a distinctly humanoid figure running down a forest path at what seemed to be almost 70 miles per hour. When the creature realized that it was being observed, it turned on the witnesses and snarled. It was described as about 6 feet tall with a human-like face and appeared to be angry. The witness and his family drove away from the area. Source: 14 Times, May 1996. Date, location, time, summary. Source, location. Northford, Connecticut. Date, September 12, 1995. Time, 10:20. While walking in the area near the All Saints Cemetery in Middletown Road, a woman heard a static sound, which directed her attention to an object resting on the ground. She described the object as helmet-shaped and said that her first thought was that someone had fallen from a bicycle or motorcycle, but soon realized that the object was much too large to be a bicycle or motorcycle helmet. She continued walking until she had approached within 30 or 40 feet of the object. She described it as red metallic about 2 feet wide and 2 feet high, with a large concentration of white lights constantly blinking. She said she watched the lights blink for an estimated 10 minutes, before she became alarmed at hearing the words, "Oops, we goofed," twice. She was certain she heard those words spoken inside her head. After becoming alarmed, she quickly moved off in the direction of a nearby monument, and, once there, became curious and returned to the sighting spot on the lawn. When she arrived, the object was gone. Her trip to and back from the monument would have taken about 4 minutes. Another woman had seen about 15 years ago over the same cemetery a large metallic bowl-shaped object flying directly overhead several hundred feet up. Source: Connecticut MUFON. Date: September 15, 1995. Location: Wasilla, AK. Time: 2 o'clock. Summary: noticed 2 objects traveling in an erratic manner in a southerly direction out of the northeast. Person A and B were walking down a dirt road traveling southwest. Person A, about 10 feet back from Person B, got the feeling of being watched, turned abruptly. Person B noticed and turned as well. Both persons witnessed an orange light about 10 finger widths above the horizon. The object was moving in an erratic manner, with significant altitude changes every second. The object then started to move in a southerly direction and disappeared behind a tree line near the horizon. Both persons, after discussing the object, turned and continued walking in a SW direction. After an unspecified amount of time, less than 10 minutes, we believe Person B also felt as if he was being watched. At that point he turned and witnessed a second orange light, traveling about in the same course and the same erratic manner. In further detail of the odd behavior that was observed of the 2 objects, they were both moving extremely slowly across the sky, with rapid peaks and descents in their altitude. They would jump in altitude, at least 1 finger width, and then drop in altitude, at least 1 finger width, within a second's time. Source: National UFO Reporting Center. Date: September 15, 1995. Location: Time. Summary. Source: Location: San Isidro de Canavanas, Puerto Rico. Date: September 15, 1995. Time: 0200 Edwin Lopez was driving on State Road 65 and was approaching an intersection where there was a traffic signal. As he was slowing down to make a left turn, he suddenly saw a figure run out from the side of the road. At first he thought it was a dog, but he realized that it was about 3 feet tall, covered with dark hair. It ran in a bent-over position, but as it approached the vehicle it straightened up and ran away at very high speed, performing 2 incredible leaps as it crossed the highway. As it reached the other side of the road it made another tremendous leap into the wooded area, quickly disappearing from sight. Source: Jorge Martin. Evidencia OVNI Number 10. Date: September 15, 1995. Location: Laribe, Lesotho. Time: 2220. Summary: a local farmer, Peter Lachasa, contacted local authorities reporting that he found a very strange-looking craft on his farm near the Matabamatso River. He and other witnesses had seen the object previously crash near the foothills. Later, authorities found a large round disc on the ground. The object was dull gray in color. No windows or portholes were seen. It did not appear to have any external damage. There was a severe fire after the crash. It was reported that 3 live occupants from the craft were rescued. No other information. Source: Joachim Koch, Hans-Jürgen Kyborg. Date: Location: Time. Summary. Source: Location: Springfield, Missouri. Date: September 15, 1995. Time: late night. The witness was awakened in the middle of the night by a bright light coming from her daughter's bedroom. Her right arm was paralyzed and she had to pull it with her left arm to turn over to see why the light was on. She had to struggle to roll her eyes down from the top of her eye sockets and saw the same creature's profile of one seen in 1987, with its arms extended over her daughter's bed. Angry, she sat up. The creature then turned and looked at her in a threatening manner, with the same huge blue eyes, and the witness then passed out in her pillow. As she fell onto her pillow, she saw the creature vanish. It turned into a vertical line of light within the bright light and it was gone. Source: Nancy J. Graham, World of the Strange. Date: Location: Time. Summary. Source: Location: Campo Rico, Puerto Rico. Date, mid-September 1995. Time, 0730 A. Daniel Perez heard a very loud buzzing sound coming from outside his home. When he looked out, he saw a strange creature descend and perch itself on two large legs on top of a large rock in his yard. It then appeared to gain some impulse and jumped up, disappearing over a nearby avocado tree. The beings seemed to have small wing-like protrusions on his back, which he used to propel himself at very high speed. Source: Jorge Martin. Evidencia OVNI number 8. Date, location, time, summary. Source: location. Pozo, Campo Rico, Puerto Rico. Date, September 16, 1995. Time, midnight. While Tropical Storm Marilyn was buffeting the area, a local resident saw a strange 5-foot creature with red glowing eyes. He fired at the being several times, but this one seemed to sprout small wings and fly away from the area. Source: Jorge Martin. Evidencia OVNI number 8. Date, location, time, summary. Source: location. Anones, Naranjito, Puerto Rico. Date, September 22, 1995. Time, 1730. Rosa Jimenez was out in a field gathering her cows when she noticed a short child-like figure crouching behind some nearby weeds. The being had a large head, with a wide forehead. It had beautiful slanted eyes, with red pupils, a flattened nose with rosy cheeks and small pointed ears. It had a thin mouth and a pointed chin. The being's skin tone seemed to change from gray to gold beige in color. His hair was light in color and seemed to be sticking straight up. The beings wore a light tunic that covered him from his neck down to his feet. The being stared at the witness and smiled at her. He then slightly turned his head and ran into the woods. A week later, she saw the same being hiding behind a tree trunk. She spoke to him but did not receive an answer. Source: Jorge Martin. Evidencia OVNI number 8. Date, location, time, summary. Source: location. Santa Barbara do Este, Brazil. Date, September 24, 1995. Time, midnight. Edson Roberto Marcelo, 29 years of age, was traveling on a road near this city when he noticed a very bright light on the side of the road. A beam of light then suddenly illuminated his car and Edson felt a heat wave invading his body and then blacked out. When he came to, he found himself several kilometers from where he had seen the light, and 40 minutes had apparently transpired. Very shaken and with his eyes irritated, he then drove to the house of a friend. The next day he found several strange found marks on his wrists and his ears were buzzing. Upon inspecting his vehicle, he noticed that parts of the steering wheel had apparently melted. Later he vaguely remembered being inside something with smooth walls and lying on top of a table. There he was apparently given a telepathic command instructing him to forget the whole episode. Source: CEPEX, UFO Genesis Brazil. Date, location, time, summary. Source: location. Grimsby, South Humberside, England. Date, September 27, 1995. Time, 0300 A. The witness, 35-year-old Paul Gilman, woke up when he heard something in the room. He then saw bounding towards him from behind an armchair, a small goblin-like creature, about 3.5 feet tall. It ran with a scamper. Gilman tried to move but was paralyzed. The being reached another man that was sleeping in the room and bent down over him. It then noticed the witness and looked up with an expression of surprise. It then backed away and disappeared behind the same chair. It was described as having long thin arms, large pointed ears and huge round eyes set in a triangular head. The witness was able to move as soon as the creature disappeared. Source: Peter Huff and Moishe Kalman, The Truth About UFO Abductions. Date, location, time, summary. Source: location. Quartz Hill, California. Date, September 28, 1995. Time, midnight. The witness suddenly woke up and felt an urge to go to the window. As she stood by the window, she suddenly heard a sound like thunder, and she looked up to the sky and saw a blinking light descending rapidly at incredible speed. In a second it stopped just a few feet from the ground. It hovered, displaying blinking round yellow lights. She described the craft as shaped like the planet Saturn with a shiny halo. Suddenly the lights went off and she could hear a humming sound, then nothing. The object then landed in a deserted field across from the house on top of a small hill. She then noticed several little men approaching her window. This wore what appeared to be scuba-like outfits, dark blue in color, and they stared at her with interest. Incredibly, she then realized that the glass of the window had been somehow removed. The little men closest to her then jumped through the open window and approached her. She could clearly see his eyes, which were hazel green in color. The little being stared at intently. He then asked her if she was DV. She replied in the affirmative. In a quick motion, the little man put his hand on her shoulders and then the others joined in, touching her arms, and holding her as if they were trying to prevent her from running away. As they lay their hands on her, she felt an intense cold inside of her. At this point, she apparently passed out. She was apparently carried through the open window and dragged over the ground. In her semi-awake state, she could hear them talking among themselves in an unknown language. She was taken up the hill towards the landed craft. She could see a square opening with a light inside. She was taken up a stair-like protrusion as another being waited for them at the door. Before she was apparently dragged inside the door, a greenish kind of light smoke enveloped her and knocked her out completely. She woke up later lying down. She heard metallic noises and unknown language around her. She managed to open her eyes and noticed that the room was round and very clean looking. A soft yellow light illuminated the room. The greenish smoke was still dense and it was hard for her to breathe. She felt a burning sensation inside her nostrils and she had a headache. She heard noises and talking on the other side and turned around to see several of the beings operating computer consoles, sitting on what appeared to be chairs. In front of them he could see a square window and the stars shining on the other side. Suddenly one of the beings turned to look at her and yelled something at the others. Soon several beings came running towards where she was. Some wore white doctor-like gowns. The beings were very similar to humans, except for their size. The beings seemed worried because she was awake. They then touched her and she lost consciousness again. Her next memory was of waking up on her bed. Source: Pancake Perspectives UFO Wisconsin. Date: September 29, 1995. Car stop UFO encounter near Velja, Jutland, Denmark. Related articles.